A business owner in the city of Binghamton has filed a petition against the city of Binghamton over the condemnation of his facility and all power being shut down, halting operations. 12 News' Kyle Spisak has more on the case.
Following the condemnation and power being shut off at the Pallet shop on 30 Crandall Street in Binghamton in late February, the owner of the company has filed a petition claiming his business is now suffering a loss of $40,000 since operations were forced to stop.
This is something urgent. Every day that goes by, my client loses customers, loses profit, and, as a business, you can only do that for so long before you're out of business.
The building the Pallet shop operates out of was condemned due to holes in the walls, the ceiling, and leaking pipes in the facility, according to the testimony of Binghamton code enforcement officers. Benjamin and his client claimed there was no safety risk with the state of the building.
There's some violations there. There's not a question about that, but they're not a threat to the health, welfare, and safety of anyone.
Benjamin alleges city code enforcement told NYSEG to shut off power to 30 Crandall Street.
They say that the city told them to shut it off. Then they now say that there was a lineman that did a report. That is not true. We know that the lineman came there, went over, shut the power down, didn't look at anything, and then left.
However, code enforcement says they never tell NYSEG to shut off power to condemned properties. 12 News reached out to NYSEG for comment, who said they were not able to provide any information as they were not present at the hearing. Binghamton Code Enforcement issued a temporary stay of condemnation to the Pallet shop, granting 10 days to make repairs on the cited issues. The company said without power, repairs could not be made, but Code said the business would have to work with NYSEG to resolve that issue. Kyle Spisak, 12 News, Broome County.